And that's Hall of Famer Tony Gwynn joins me on the Mighty 1090. Coach Gwynn, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Coach. I want to see him win, too.
Yeah, I know you do, and you've been a part of some of the very, very best ball clubs the Padres have ever put on the field. And, Tony, I was saying, and you can kind of jump in on this, you know, yesterday Mr. Fowler and Mr. D mentioned that, you know, they're looking to start the year at about $87 million and that they'd maybe be able to increase that if needed. And I'm saying, you know, nowadays, you know, you're never going to be the highest, but you don't want to be the lowest. But you still, regardless if you're spending 75 or 80 or 90 million, you got to still work on developing that farm system.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And you know, you're you're in a division where, you know, a couple of teams, Dodgers are going to go way over 100, probably 200, maybe 300 million. A couple of other teams, Giants and Diamondbacks, are probably over 100. And so, you know, you're going to always be in a division where somebody else is going to be spending more money than you are. But ultimately, to me, I agree with you. It starts and ends with developing your own. And, you know, Padres are going to have to do a good job of drafting and developing their own talent. And that way, at least for 6 years, you'll be able to keep the prices down until those guys develop and become really good players. And you know, fortunately for the Padres, you know, their farm system's gotten a whole lot better, and guys are starting to work their way through the minors and up to the big leagues and starting to have some success. And the Padres will have control of those guys for a few years. And to me, that's how you have to do it, because they're never going to be in a position where they can just go out and, you know, spend all the money they want on, you know, on free agents. And so you have to draft and develop your own.
I had a great conversation with your brother today. He was down on the field in Peoria with the Seattle Mariners. He called me when he got off the field, and that former San Diego State All-American and big leaguer doing rather well for himself.
Yeah, he likes this gig he's got with the Mariners, and, you know, he's been there now for 3 years, and it's an interesting gig because, you know, their organization, they've always had talented people in the minor league, and them, like the Padres, until this year at least, they're spending a whole lot more time developing their own guys. And, you know, they got a talented minor league system, too, with some talented minor leaguers that are going to make their way to big leagues this year, and some of them already have. So, you know, he's been busy. I've been busy. I haven't had a chance to talk to him here in about a week or so, but I'm going to give him a call here this weekend.
Well, let's get to talking Aztec baseball. You guys dropped the first game of that 3-game series last weekend at San Jose State, a Mountain West Conference series to open the year, but then you guys come back and really play 2 solid ball games and ended up blowing out San Jose State on Sunday 13-8. So you took 2 out of 3, and then you had your home opener the other night and beat up on Loyola Marymount 9-2. So a good start.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of like what I thought. I thought, you know, opening day, first game of the year, guys were pressing, trying to do too much, and it kind of came back and haunted us. We made some errors in that game, and San Jose State took advantage of them. But really the last 3 games we kind of settled in, and, you know, we pitched much better, and offensively we've done a pretty good job of being patient and making pitchers throw strikes. The big thing for us is if we throw strikes on when we're pitching, defensively we tend to play a whole lot better. And Friday's game, we were behind in the count all day long. We just couldn't put ourselves in a position where we were getting ahead in the count, and so balls were hit, and then we were really rushing on the defensive end. But yeah, you know, we put such a big deal in the first game of the year. And even though we lost it, I really didn't think that much about it. I just, you know, kind of chalked it up to just being, you know, a little too antsy about the first game and turn the page and come back the next day. And they did. They came back the next day, played a pretty good game. Sunday we fell behind 7-2, but, you know, scratch, they didn't give up. They hung right in there, and we came back and won that game. And Tuesday's game was much the same. We're down 2-0. Their stars dealing, throwing strikes, working ahead, throwing all his pitches for strikes. And then all of a sudden a couple of good at-bats put together, and then a big hit by our catcher, C.J. Saylor, cleared the bases with the bases loaded in the 2-2 tie. And next thing you know, you're up 5-2. and you kind of take control of the game. And that's, we're 3-1. I like where we are. We're still trying to figure out our pitching up to this point, but we got West Virginia coming in here this weekend, and it's going to get a little tougher. This is a pretty good club, so they're a team that swings the bat, and so for us, we're going to have to pitch better if we expect to win some games this weekend.
Well, and we're visiting with Tony Gwynn joining us on the Mighty 1090. Tony, those midweek games, for people that have never coached, those are important games for a couple of reasons. Number one, you want to win them. But number two, normally you're using, backup guys, get them a little bit of work and trying to bring some of those young pitchers along. But when you do that, at the end of the year, if you can win a high percentage of those Tuesday or Wednesday type ball games, normally you're going to have a pretty good year.
You're right, Coach. And for us, being in the Mountain West Conference, those Tuesday games are RPI games. You're playing teams that are playing in conferences whose RPI is going to be a whole lot better than teams in your own conference. And so, last Tuesday was Loyola Marymount. Next week it's UC Riverside. The week after that, I think it's Cal State Northridge. And so you're playing teams from stronger conferences. And so, yeah, you're right. You really have to be able to hold your own on Tuesdays. And so my thought has always been, we always spend so much time trying to get 3 starters for your weekend. I've always believed you got to have 4 because you need one to go on Tuesday nights, because every Tuesday game we have, there's no cream puffs. There's nobody that is just going to roll over for you. You're going to have to play pretty good baseball in order to beat whoever you play on Tuesday nights. So for us, it's important. Those are important games for us, and so whenever we can take advantage of those and win them, we really need to do that.
I'm looking at your schedule right now. You got a pretty manageable schedule this year as far as traveling, don't you?
Yeah, we do. We, in baseball, in college baseball, these schedules are made 2-3 years in advance. So, we set that first year with San Jose State, and they weren't in the conference at the time. And then they came to the conference, so we couldn't. It was just too much to switch games to later on, so we left them where they were. But this year, we go to St. Mary's next weekend, and, we got West Virginia and Purdue coming in here. Not any far non-conference series this year. But in the future, we're hoping, to at least have one trip once a year somewhere where, the kids kind of look forward to going. But this year, there's none of that. We pretty much stay close to California, playing California teams on the road, and like I said, West Virginia, Purdue at home. UCR, we're going to have a 3-game series with them later on in the year. So it's a very travel-friendly schedule for us, but again, it's not an easy one. It's still going to be difficult.
Yeah, traveling can be a little cumbersome at times, but there's some very good opponents on that schedule. And you mentioned West Virginia. They're coming in. You'll go against them tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, and then you go again on Saturday night at 6, and then Sunday finish up at noontime. And let's talk a little bit about Brad Haynal. I remember seeing him play for Sam Blaylock up there at Rancho Bernardo. He goes to San Diego State, pretty good early part of his career, and he breaks his leg, and then now he's come back a redshirt. I guess he's redshirt junior, if I'm not mistaken, and off to a very nice start swinging the bat.
Really has, he's really matured and is really doing all the things you want your catcher to do. He's taking charge of the pitching staff. He's calling a good game. He's getting better at blocking balls. Offensively, he's a lot more patient now. He's kind of under control. He kind of understands what he's trying to do, and he's gotten off to a really good start for us. He had a big 3-run homer on Sunday for us to give us the lead up at San Jose State. And so, and again, he's one of those guys on our club that kind of helps lead our young guys where they need to go with Evan Potter and Tim Zier and Greg Allen. Those 4 guys pretty much guide these young guys where we need to go. And Haynal caught all 3 games in San Jose State, so I wanted to give him a night off on Tuesday. And he wasn't really happy about it. You can tell he really wants to be in there every day because, I think he's finally gotten an idea of what he should be doing now, and now he's doing it, and he's having a lot of success.
Tony, when you go out and evaluate a hitter that you can bring into your program? Maybe the guy, isn't a 300 hitter in high school. Maybe he's a 275, 290 guy. But you see something, and then you start talking to them and kind of find out where they're at, if they're a sponge or if they can, put things together, because aptitude is so big. When you weigh a hitter, what are you looking for?
Well, I think you touched on it. I don't necessarily look to see how far a guy hits the ball. I'm looking to see, can he repeat this? Can he take a good swing and then repeat it? If he takes a bad one, can he step out, kind of, adjust his glove, get in there and fix it and take a better swing next time? Because repeatability is, especially in the college game, that's the thing that's going to tell you as a coach whether a guy's going to have success or not. Can he go up there and can he take a good swing? Can he take a good swing against a hard thrower? Can he take a good swing against a soft thrower? Repeatability, that's the number one thing I look at. And of course, your size and attitude and academically they got to be able to take care of business. So, all those things come into play. But from a playing standpoint, I'm looking to see, who wants it? Who's going to bust their behind down the line even though they hit an 18 hopper or shortstop? Who's going to be aggressive out of the box and try to get two instead of settling for one? Those are the types of things that catch my eye, catch my coaching staff's eye. And so, and obviously once you sit down and you start talking to them, you can pick their brain that way too. But I'm more of I want to see guys kind of in their own environment do what they do. And if they can repeat it and not get caught up in the moment, get caught up in the situation, that's a big plus for me.
Tony Gwynn joining me on the Mighty 1090. Greg Allen, we had him down here a few weeks ago, a real good-looking young guy, preseason All-American, got off to a pretty good start. What's the strength of his game right now?
I think the biggest thing is that he kind of understands the game. He knows what type of player he is, and he doesn't try to be anything more than who he is. He's a line drive hitter, a switch hitter who hits the ball to all fields, who can get on, steal a base, cause havoc out there, force the defense to kind of, pay attention to him. He's a supreme defender. He's got a great arm. And again, he just kind of knows how to play the game. And that's, those four guys I mentioned before, Greg Allen, Tim Zier, Evan Potter, Brad Haynal, those four guys, they kind of, they've been here long enough now where they know how to play the game. So they don't get caught up in all the other stuff. They just kind of focus in on doing what they're capable of doing. And if we're going to win this year, those four guys are going to be the guys to lead us, because Allen and Zier at the top of the lineup, Haynal and Potter at the back, Potter more for the glove than anything else. If we're going to have success this year, those four guys are going to be a big reason why.
Hey, your other preseason All-American, Michael Cedoroth, kind of a rough outing. Was he trying to throw 112 miles an hour that first game?
I don't want to say he was overthrowing, but he just couldn't get his fastball in the strike zone. And we're tinkering around with the idea of making him a closer, because Friday night he only went 3 2/3, and for a Friday night guy, he's got to eat up more innings than 3 2/3, and so. We've been throwing the idea around if he could come in for an inning and throw strikes, he could help us more that way than struggling on a weekend game. So we're going to tinker around with that. I think we're probably going to try that this weekend and see how that goes. Michael threw an inning Tuesday night, and he walked the guy but got a double play ball and got out of it. And he seemed to be a whole lot more relaxed in that role. So, like I told you in the beginning, we're kind of tinkering around with our pitching right now. And, that's one of those things we've got to figure out. But, whether he closes for us or he starts for us, we just need him to throw strikes. If he throws strikes, everything else will fall into place.
Well, heck, T, let's face it, this is a big year for him. He's heard all the talk about, he could be a high draft pick, and sometimes, maybe taking a step back, taking a deep breath and exhale, and he'll go out there and get on track.
Yeah, and that's what we want. We want him to get on track, because one way or the other, if he has success, all his dreams are going to come true. He's going to get drafted. Somebody's going to give him an opportunity, and he's going to be off and going to play pro ball. But mechanically, we got to get him in the strike zone, because when he's in the strike zone, he only went 3 2/3 the other day, but I think he still struck out 8 guys. And he threw 90 some odd pitches in the 3 2/3. And when he's in the strike zone, he's just a tough guy to hit. So, like I said, we're going to dig around with him a little bit this weekend and try him out at the back end of games and see how that works out. But one way or the other, if we can get him throwing strikes, he's going to really help us.
Hey, last thing, I'm a little bit older than you, but I used to go to a lot of the games at Charlie Smith Field when you were playing. You ever sit back, and you've been the Aztec coach now for well over a decade, you ever sit back and kind of wonder how your team, present day or in the last couple of years, would have fared against the teams that you played on at San Diego State?
Coach, that's funny you ask that. I do that all the time. And, one of the things I go back to every day is when I played at San Diego State, Coach Dietz was a stickler for doing first and third rundowns. That was the first thing we did every day of practice for the 3 years that I played for him. And we do it like once a week. And on opening day, we had a situation with a runner on first. And as a runner on first and third, pitcher steps off. We got the runner in a rundown. We throw it to first, and Ryan, my first baseman, takes off running before he catches it. He goes down the right field line. One run scores, and the other guy goes all the way to third base. And seems like there isn't a day that goes by where I don't think about, because I used to ask myself, why are we doing first and thirds every day? I mean, every day we start our practice, outfielders, get your helmets on. We're going to go out and do first and third rundowns, and we used to do it every day. And the reason why he did it dawned on me that the reason why we did it every day was because it just became, after a while, it just became second nature. You knew what to do, you knew where to be, you knew where to go, and we do it once a week. And I'm telling you, at times during the course of the season, it'll look like we've never worked on that play ever. And come Friday, sure enough, first game of the year, there's a ball rolling in the right field corner because we didn't wait to catch the ball before we took off running. And, they ended up scoring, I think they scored 3 runs that inning, and they went on to win the first game. And so I think about that a lot. I think those teams were probably a lot more fundamentally sound than we were. But back then they had a whole lot more time to work on it. There was no, rules as to when you could practice. You could play games in the fall and play against JCs in the fall back then, and in our era you can't do that. So that's why I always say at our level, in our game today, you're really not going to know about your team very much until you actually play somebody, because that's when you start to see if guys have figured it out. That's when you start to see if guys start to understand, because you can inter squad all you want to when you're playing against your own guys. It's really not comparable to playing another team in another uniform. And so, but back then, Coach Dietz had a pretty good idea about what kind of club he had, because he saw his team play 30 games in the fall before their 82-game college schedule back then. And so those teams were a little bit more prepared, I think, better prepared than teams like ours are, because we don't get that much time to practice and play.
Well, I remember in the mid-'80s when I was coaching with Jerry Bartow down at Southwestern, I called Coach Dietz up and I go, would like to come up and play. He goes, what time do you like to play? At 8:30, 1:30, or 7:30? Because he had like 3 different crews out there playing.
Yeah, Coach Dietz had enough guys to fund 3 teams. So you had a varsity, you had a JV, and you had a freshman. And, if he had to, Coach would go all the way to Yuma to play, too. If the weather was bad here, we'd get the van and drive out to Yuma to play out in Yuma. But, Coach, he was smart like that. He knew that he could watch these guys play and get a pretty good idea who could handle the pressure and who couldn't. He already knew well before the season started as to how successful guys were going to be. And even the year I was a volunteer coach for him, I really didn't figure that out until the next year when he was gone. And, you're going through the fall stuff, and they're telling you can only practice 25 days during the fall. And you're like, well, how you going to, and he didn't play anybody, so how you going to find out whether it's not guys who said it? But, it's taken me a while, but I kind of get the handle of it now.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. You may even remember the JV team he had. They used to wear the uniforms that said Baseline Collegians on them.
Oh yeah, I played for the Boulder Collegians. Yep, he sure did. And he also had my sophomore and junior year, we wore the old Alaska Gold Panthers uniforms because he brought those home and took off the Alaska Gold Panthers and had Aztecs sold on them. And so even though our school colors are scarlet and black, we were wearing scarlet and blue uniforms out here for 2 years. But, Coach was in survival mode. Whatever it took to keep the program going, hey, that's what he was going to do. And then, luckily for me, we still have a baseball program going. And, hopefully we can get to that mountaintop that nobody else has been able to get to one time. But we're sure striving for that, and hopefully one day we get there.
Hey, well put, Tony. Hey, thanks for the time. Good luck against West Virginia starting tomorrow night. For you Aztec fans, 6 o'clock tomorrow night, Tony Gwynn Stadium. Saturday night at 6, and then the finale on Sunday at high noon. Tony, be well, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, thanks, Coach.